what you're telling us is true about this hateful institution, you need to step back from it and you need to stop monetizing off of the titles. Because you know what? I find it offensive. I find it offensive that you're not sticking to your principles, Meghan and Harry. I'm offended that you don't stick to your principles and, be better than that name. Why would you want that name? Anyway, she always tries to tell us in these interviews that all she cares about is family and being authentic. And she just, that's all she cares about. Well, if it really is all she cares about, then stop with all of this PR nonsense in your face stuff. Stop with the business, stop with the Netflix shows. We don't need to see it. We don't need this. It's like, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, pray for this woman. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jennifer. I am so happy to have you here. Today we're gonna get into it, okay? Part 2 of the Bloomberg interview with Meghan and interviewer Emily Chang. I did a part 1 analysis. I'll link it down in the description. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of part 2 of this lovely interview, I did want to reiterate the fact that, first of all, I was really feisty in the last video and I kept saying, I need to calm down, but I'm just fired up. I'm so fired up. And it was really funny because in the comments, you guys were like, we love it. We love that you're fired up. Keep going. We love it. So many of you were saying, you are reading my mind. You are speaking my words. And I'm really, really honored. And I really do read most, if not all, of your comments. And it's just amazing how many of you people are so wonderful. You're so reasoned, you're so thoughtful, and you're not hateful, awful people at all. And the point I'm getting at is in the first part of this interview, Meghan is very quick on 2 occasions in the interview to hammer in the point that anyone that reads or buys into what she calls a false and misleading narrative about her, we're just hateful people. And beyond that, content creators like myself who choose to have reasoned, thoughtful opinions about her and to share those opinions, we're just feeding a beast. We are just monetizing hate and we're creating clickbaity videos. And if that's something that we want to do and we don't have a problem with that to the detriment of someone like her, well then we just have to live with ourselves. It's just really funny how someone can make a 6-part Netflix documentary trashing their respective families, hers and her husband's, and that's okay. That's an okay platform to use and monetize. But when people like me turn on a camera and clap back at that type of behavior, we're the haters. But not only that, she was criticizing the content creators like me, basically saying that we're money hungry beasts, but that we're feeding a beast, meaning you guys, that you guys are the beast that we're feeding. And also assuming that you don't have critical reasoning skills of your own to listen to this woman, to watch this woman and her actions, and to come to your own reasoned opinion. So I was still fired up about that going into watching the second part of this and in making this video, because I cannot for the life of me fathom how she doesn't see the blaring hypocrisy of what she says. So it's okay for her to criticize and spew hateful narratives, many of which have been disproven with facts. It's okay for her to do that and monetize off of that. But people that have opinions about her and speak our minds, we're in the wrong. We're the haters. It's just so unbelievably hypocritical. And I feel hateful of her to do that, because it's like Christ said, you're criticizing other people and you don't see the huge log in your own eye. And, I'm one of the first people out here to say that, yes, I am criticizing her and her actions. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Are you perfect? Absolutely not. But guess what? We don't have a worldwide platform like this woman does. Okay, I have a very small audience. A lot of people out here that talk about her have small audiences as well. So she owes some responsibility to that fact. And because she has told so many lies and done so much to destroy 2 families out in plain sight, there's nowhere for her to hide anymore. So for her to hang back and play this angelic role as if, she's just so unjustifiably criticized, but she's going to rise above it and we're all haters, I just find that extremely difficult to stomach. So yeah, we all have problems. We've all done hateful things in our lives. We've all been bad people at some point or other. But the difference is that so many of us are working to be better. We apologize when we need to. We rectify our actions when we need to. So that's why it's so unbelievably difficult to watch someone like Meghan in the public domain constantly spin these yarns, portraying herself as this innocent, perpetual victim that's just been put upon, and completely discounting everything that she's done to get her to this point. She hasn't atoned and she hasn't come clean. And so many of her problems would dissipate if she would just come clean. I think she doesn't because of fear and because of ego. It's the ego, the narcissistic ego that she has that tells her that she actually hasn't done anything wrong and that she's the one that's put upon, right? And we're all the ones with the problem. But I also think it's fear, and it's fear rooted in pride, because I think she's fearful if she actually did come out and address all the criticisms one by one, starting from the biggest, calling the royal family racists, and also all the drama and the trauma surrounding her family and her estrangement from them, and now her husband's family and his estrangement from them, and her role that she played in it. All of that stuff that really gets us fired up. I think she feels if she addresses it, because I don't want to say crimes, but because the offenses are so egregious, she's fearful that we won't forgive her. I think the public would. I do think it would take a whole heck of a lot of time. But the problem is, and I will keep banging this point home until, I don't know, but the problem is it doesn't matter if we forgive her or not. She still has to apologize. She has to apologize to everyone, in particular her family and his family, but to the British public, to the American public, to so many people who have watched her lie and gaslight us for years. She has to apologize without expecting us to forgive her right away. That's what she wants, but she knows she's not going to get it. So her fear prevents her from apologizing in the first place. But she still needs to do it. And regardless of whether we forgive her or not, and people are not the monsters that she thinks they are. They would, but they would definitely expect bang up behavior from that point on. And they would be watching her like a hawk, even more than they do now. But again, you need to apologize without expecting anything in return, because an apology isn't about you. An apology is supposed to be about atoning to the person that you wronged. And she doesn't get it. And she needs to apologize and then go to the Lord and seek him. But yeah, I was just following that whole line and thing that I was talking about in the last video about how it really bothered me about why she can't seem to rectify the fact that she can badmouth people as much as she wants without any proof and monetize that. But then when people like me come on and speak our truth, we're just haters that are looking to monetize hate off of her. You just can't believe watching this person. And I do think she's a caricature. I do think she is a caricature of a human being, because all I've seen right now is someone that is so shallow and hollow that sometimes I wonder if she does have a heart or soul. Because how can someone conduct themselves like this and continue to conduct themselves like this? But anyway, let's get into part 2. And there's quite a few things in here that are a doozy. Yeah, I'm going to do everything I can to be as calm as I can. But then again, I'm not going to care as much as I did last video, because you guys seem to really like it when I get fired up and I get all, like pissy. But I was thinking, yeah, well, maybe it is true, because according to Meghan, y'all are just these beasts that I'm feeding all this malicious, hateful misinformation and gossip to, that I know in her core, she still thinks that she's better than everybody else. But on the other side of that coin, she also doesn't love herself. I personally think she hates herself. She hates herself, she hates me, and she hates you, because we're not buying into her garbage. But yeah, let's get into it. First of all, she's in Santa Barbara, okay? And she's at this restaurant in Santa Barbara. I looked it up. because I saw the sign that they were showing and it looked weird, but I just Googled it and found out that it's called the Third Window Brewing in Santa Barbara. So that's where they are. And it's this place that I guess serves up craft beers and hamburgers and things like that. And they call it like those smash burgers, where it's the really hearty kind of meat that's kind of mashed up and marinated in all kind of different flavors. It looks really good. But what I was noticing about the place was the plates that they use to serve Emily Chang, the interviewer, and Meghan, they're so unbelievably small. So it's one of those places where you can order a burger, I'm sure, but you can't get fries added as a side. You have to add it. And that's probably why they gave them such a small plate with just a burger, because I'm sure Emily and Meghan didn't order fries. But I just found that so annoying to have such a small plate. I'm like, give me a plate that's a normal size. That would be nice, especially when you're dealing with food that looks so unbelievably messy. I mean, it looks good, but it's the type of thing that's going to be all over the table. And, you know, if you don't have a bigger plate. That was just the rando thing I thought when I was watching them prepare these burgers on this plate. I'm like, why are the plates so dang small? Like, even that's getting me pissy. But so then getting into it, they sit down at the table while they're waiting for their hamburger order. And the interviewer, Emily, says to Meghan, this is a relatively quiet town, quiet place. Are you able to get out a lot? And Meghan's like, absolutely. We go out all the time. I go out all the time, lunches and dinners with girlfriends, and of course, date nights, because that's so important. She's always reiterating the fact to us that date nights are really, really important. Date nights were something invented for people that worked 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, people that were married but didn't see their spouse a lot because they were so involved with work, raising kids, doing all the things. So date night was invented as a way for super, super busy couples to pencil in time to make sure that they make for quality time with their spouse. I'm thinking these fools just probably sit around wherever the heck they're living and do nothing but doom scroll about how people are criticizing them. And how are they so busy? Her Netflix show is completely done. She's not filming it anymore. And I don't know about this holiday thing they're promising, but I don't see a season 3 on the horizon. I really don't. She doesn't podcast anymore. She's officially retired. She said that she doesn't want to concentrate on that. But we all know she's white labeling the hell out of As Ever. How hard is that? It's basically a glorified shop account, y'all. So give me a break, whatever. So it's like, it's always like, oh, date night. See what I mean? That was such a long tangent for something that just makes me so mad when she talks, but she's just so infuriating. And Emily's like, well, are you able to go out incognito? And Meghan, again, is driving home the point where I don't have to be incognito. I'm here in such a wonderful, loving, inclusive community that, I don't have to go incognito. This is just me and my life and like a new chapter. And I'm like, well, then why are y'all banging on wanting security, on 2 continents? And, why is your husband taking his father, His Majesty's government to court because he feels so frightened? Well, yeah, he's frightened in the UK, right? But he's not frightened living in Los Angeles, in California, Santa Barbara area, where there's a heck of a lot more crime than there is over where he was before, behind palace gates. I digress. And Meghan says something like, if I were invisible and I could just completely be incognito, I miss grocery shopping so much, because she Instacarts the hell out of Instacart, but she wishes she could go grocery shopping whenever she wanted to every single day. Well, you still can. You just told us that you do everything around there and you don't have to go incognito when you're not hiding, because this is such a wonderful chapter in your life. Well, then go grocery shopping, lady. I doubt the people in Montecito, that rich, wealthy area where, celebrities, you can't swing a stick without probably whacking one. No one's going to care. Just go grocery shopping. Like, seriously, Meghan, get the heck over yourself. Okay, and then the interviewer goes into what I can see is a very uncomfortable subject area for Meghan. Emily asks her about the state of our country, the US, and the state of, division that we find ourselves in now. Everything is so polarized. People are on edge. The political climate is hot. What does she think about that? And especially in light of the fact that Los Angeles has been experiencing so much unrest about immigration policies and people out there, writing and doing all this stuff. And Meghan just gives these kind of wet blanket answers that are really, really carefully crafted to not offend anybody. And she just is like, well, being that I'm from Los Angeles and, these are my people and, we just all have to realize that we've risen above in the past and we're going to rise above again, something to that effect. And she talks about how, we need to connect as human beings and try to see more about what we have in common versus what divides us. And I'm just like, are you running for office? Because you're doing a really, really good job. You can definitely tell that she doesn't want to get political. She's smart enough to know that she's so divisive and so unliked as it is that she definitely doesn't want to make it worse and start alienating even more people who otherwise wouldn't care. By talking politics. And at one point, the waitress comes up and gives them their food, again, on these plates that are just so tiny because compared to the burger on the plate. I don't know why that just got to me so much, but I was like, that's just annoying. But you can tell Meghan's so, hi. Like she's so happy that the waitress was there and interrupted the flow of that conversation. But what I loved was as soon as the waitress left the table, Emily goes right back into it, getting back into that line of questioning. Emily says, is there anything that you're dying to do or say that you can't right now? Meaning politically. And Meghan just looks so bemused. And you're not going to believe Meghan's answer. The woman who has been harping on the fact, going on 10 years now, that she didn't have a voice, that she was silenced, that she was muzzled, right? She says, no, I just make a choice of what matters to me and what's important to me. What? You were so insistent on the fact that you were treated so horribly and muzzled and that you lost your voice. You didn't have a voice. Now that you have one, Meghan, the interviewer is giving you that opportunity. And she's like, no, it's just, what does she say? I just make a choice. Yeah, you're making a choice to be the most infuriating individual I have ever seen in my entire life. That's her choice. Now she's not going to say anything. And then she's like, yeah, just do whatever is important to me. They show a clip in the video of her going on some television show talking about how misogynistic Donald Trump is and how the Republican Party was losing the woman's vote, I think by 12%, whatever figure she was spouting at that time. So she was very vocal then. And she's saying basically that, that was a different time. That was 2016 before I married my husband. And if there's anything that I want to say or is necessary to say, then I would say it. And then she says, I haven't said anything since 2016. Are you kidding me right now? Everyone knows that when she came back, her and Harry, to the US, one of the biggest things they were criticized for was back in 2020, they were basically espousing their political views left and right. They are obviously Democrats, and they were making these kind of like how important it is to get out and vote type of videos, and they were espousing a lot of Democratic Party talking points and platforms. And I'm not trying to get political here. My point is that she's acting like she wasn't going out and speaking on political issues. Her and her husband were in a Zoom call in 2020 calling the Commonwealth the British Empire 2.0, which in of itself shows how woefully ignorant they are. Ignorant. The Commonwealth is a selection of nations that are there voluntarily. Commonwealth, a community of nations. And they don't know or understand that. The empire is something that was conquered. The Commonwealth is something completely different. So anyway, but they were basically talking about how horrible and rotten and racist the Commonwealth was. But yeah, so she's basically like, yeah, I haven't said anything since 2016. You cannot make this up. And then it's also really, really annoying that Meghan basically likens the being relatable and being authentic to the fact that she's sitting there eating a hamburger with Emily on camera, because Emily's like, oh my gosh, because the burgers are big and they're just kind of like messy and everything. And she's just like, oh, I'm messy. It shows I'm like normal and authentic. Doesn't mean that you're authentic, Meghan. It means that you're a human being that has to eat food to live. Okay? There's a difference. I just cannot with this woman. I can't. And then there's a part of the interview that everyone's been talking about when the interviewer's like, what's your name? Are you Duchess of Sussex? Are you Markle? Are you what? What is going on? No, I mean, we know what her name is, and we know what she wants us to think her last name is. Okay, fine. She's the Duchess of Sussex. We all know that. But, it gets to the point where you're thinking to yourself, well, it was such a horrible, rotten, evil, racist institution that made you want to unalive yourself and your unborn child. And if that's the case, then why do you still use the damn title? I mean, technically the surname, Harry's surname, Mountbatten Windsor, that's what people are saying it is. There's so many intricacies though, and it's so weird because he's like, he's the blood royal and he can use his title as his last name, and a lot of people with those peerage titles do that. For example, now that William and Kate are the Waleses, often when they're referred to in the press and things, it'll be, Louis Wales, Charlotte Wales, all that stuff, like that's their last name. So it's just, a lot of it is just a lot of, who cares? At this point, we're just kind of like, you're a big stinking hypocrite for continuing to use that title when that institution is so awful to you. And she's talked about for years how awful it was. And her husband obviously thinks it's awful. I mean, in that BBC interview in May, he basically alluded to the fact that it's a stitch up and the whole institution wants him dead. That's why they're refusing to give him protection. Can't make this up. If what you're telling us is true about this hateful institution, you need to step back from it and you need to stop monetizing off of the titles. Because you know what? I find it offensive. I find it offensive that you're not sticking to your principles, Meghan and Harry. I'm offended that you don't stick to your principles and, be better than that name. Why would you want that name? Anyway. And then they start, I'm like, help me. Then they start talking about, Emily brings up the Meghan Markle effect. I'm not even gonna really justify this and talk about this at length, except to say the Meghan Markle effect. There was maybe one or two rando things that she wore on Instagram in the last couple of years that sold out, but we all know about scarcity marketing. So we all know that probably doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot of anything. But the Meghan Markle effect, if indeed it was a thing, and it was a thing for a short time, for a very, very short time, that 18-month period that she was in the royal family, yes, she might have worn some things that sold. Because when you are a member of the British royal family and somewhat liked, and at the time she was, that's gonna happen. Happens all the time when Kate wears something, okay? So for them to still talk about this Meghan Markle effect as if it's something that is a real life thing that's happening right now, beyond hysterical, okay? Beyond hysterical. And then the interviewer goes off on what I think is a very, very interesting little road. And she talks about Meghan's kids. And she says, part of being a caring parent, and of course I'm paraphrasing here, and the interviewer Emily says, as parents, because I guess Emily's a parent too, as parents, we want for our kids growing up something better than what we even had. How do you feel like that? How do you feel about that? And you can see the absolute just strain and just anxiousness that comes across Meghan and her features and her body language. She immediately stiffens up. And, because Emily's asking, you want better circumstances for your own children than what you had growing up. And Meghan couldn't have had better circumstances. That's just the thing. She might have had an absentee, distant mother, but she did have a father that was very, very doting on her. And she was the only child for all intents and purposes. Her half siblings were grown adults at that point. So she was treated and doted on like an only child. Private schools, good restaurants, anything she wanted, all types of lessons, all types of dance lessons and activities, blah, 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 all that stuff that really, really focused and loving parents try to provide for their kids. So you can tell that, she knows she had a really great upbringing, and she knows that she doesn't really need to wish for better circumstances for her kids because she had the best of everything. I mean, her kids might be a lot more financially well off than she was, even though her dad was making a really comfortable living being a lighting director in Hollywood. Still, you can tell that whole line of questioning about her children and how they are being raised versus the way she was raised gets her really, really hot. And you can tell she's very uncomfortable. Like you can just see the steam kind of coming out of her ears. So the actual question that the interviewer says is, we all want better circumstances, and your kids are actually going to grow up in a lot different circumstances than you did. How do you rectify that? And her answer is just to give them as normal an existence as possible, just to normalize it. But then she goes into the script that she always uses whenever she's talking about her children. And that is the fact that she loves being a mom. She loves being a mom. And Harry, if she does ever bring him up, he loves being a parent too. They both love being a parent, and that it matters so much to them to be hands-on parents. Well, what good, loving parent doesn't prioritize being a parent and being a loving parent to your children over everything else? She always has to frame everything in this competitive sense. And that's just what I was hearing when she was like, it matters to us so much. It matters to us so much. It matters to everybody who wants to be a good parent. So that in of itself is infuriating to listen to. But notice how she's always like, I love being a mom. I love being a mom. And then when she was with Jamie Kern-Lima, she was like, Jamie asked her, remember something like, well, what do you want your kids to remember about you, once they're grown? And it's like, oh, how much I love them, how much I love them. And it's always about her as a mom, and how everyone looks at and perceives her as a mother. She never ever answers a question like, I want my children to have felt that they were heard, that they were loved. Frame it so that you're making it about your child, not like, I want them to know I love them so much. Because it's kind of like saying that, but the way that she phrases it, because it's so self-centered, it comes out as if she wants to be acknowledged for all the love and hard work that she put into being a mom. It's sometimes you can't quite discern it unless you really, really know her and you know how her mind thinks. Then it kind of comes out more because it's always from the point of I. It's just overwhelming, and I'm frankly embarrassed for her how egocentric this woman is. And then there's another part in the interview where Emily says to her, eventually your children are going to be old enough to read, basically, read what's been written about this woman. And she's basically asking Meghan, how are you going to handle that? And Meghan's response is to say that it's basically not going to be a problem because her children are always going to know that she's going to tell them the truth. And that also, their lived experience with her is what's going to color what they think of her and how they view her. And yeah, that is very, very true. Great observation, Meghan. But if you're going to tell your children the truth, is it going to be the truth, or is it going to be your truth, your version of events? Because her version of events and verifiable, credible people and stories and all of that out there, they contradict your truth. So there's going to be two things at play here. She'd better tell them the truth, the real truth, and she'd better make sure that the way she is raising and conducting herself and living her life, that the kids are going to see that, and it better be a good experience, because if it's not, they're not going to believe her version of the truth. These narcissistic personality types are so dangerous because they refuse to see truth. To them, the truth has 10 different versions, and it really depends on whatever their narcissistic objective is. So it's like, yeah, tell your kids something, but it better be the real truth. And it would be nice if in the future she could tell them really what happened. But then if she ever did atone in a very public way, if she ever did make amends with her husband's family and her family and all that, and I'm not talking about going back to be working royals. No one wants to see that. But that doesn't mean that they can't quietly make amends with their respective families behind the scenes. But what would be nice is if they did do that, so that when she does tell her children the truth about what's been written about her, she can say, yes, that did indeed happen, but now the truth of the situation is now that I've turned that around, and this is what's important, and this is what I learned, and this is what you don't want to do. That if you really want to normalize children by giving them a calm, peaceful, reasoned, loving existence, you're going to share the good and the bad. So maybe hopefully she will tell the truth of what happens, but not her version, the real version, and then how she can, or how she hopefully will atone for what she's done. That's what we all need to do. That's what being a good parent is. Sharing your experiences and tell them mistakes that you've made and how it changed you to be a better person. I hope that for her, and I hope that for her kids. I hope that for all of us. That's what we all should be doing, not making up these fake versions of reality and trying to constantly sell them to the public. To get what? To get this adoration that she feels that she's so deserving of. And it's like, I don't know. It's weird, you guys. Filming this part 2, I actually feel sad, like more sad for this woman, whereas last time I was more fired up. This time I'm just more sad because there's a part in the interview where Emily says, you know, is there anything that you wish for your children that's different than what you had, basically, you know, regarding your family experience? And she's like, you know, I just want them to have all the love and community and support and family that we had and that we do have. She doesn't have that now. She had it, but she doesn't have it now. So I don't know what she's talking about. The family love and support that she was given in the past, she has now turned her back on and rejected. So at least I give her props for acknowledging that she did have that in the past. For her to say she has it now, with who? She doesn't really seem to have any sort of relationship with her mother's family beyond her mother, but then we never see or hear anything about her mother anymore. She definitely doesn't talk to her father and his side of the family, her half siblings, and she doesn't talk to anybody on in her husband's family. So I don't know what she's talking about. And I think that a new agey feminist woo-woo weirdo like Meghan probably regards friends and acquaintances. She'll point to that and say, well, that's my family. She's one of those people that ascribe to that saying that, you know, friends are your chosen family. And yes, that's true to a huge extent, but friends still are not your blood. So I really do feel like she is just talking a whole lot of smack. This woman is so deluded. She's so divorced from reality. So she still thinks that she has family around her. This is scary, you guys. This is really, really scary. And then what's also very sad and very telling is she says that she wants her children to carve out their own existence for themselves, which that in of itself is a nice, wonderful sentiment to have. But she says, carve out their own existence for themselves, which will not necessarily mimic, but be reflective of the choices that her and Harry have made. What Harry and Meghan have done is isolate their children from their family ties from both of their sides, their mother and their father. Those children have parents that are estranged from both families. That's not normal, you guys. Now, if Harry and Meghan grew up in an existence where they were in danger, whether it was emotional or physical, like real emotional and physical danger, and I know that Harry will argue from the rooftops that he was in emotional danger being in that family, I don't buy it. I think he was still very, very privileged. I just think he was a little brat that didn't get his way. So he's going to throw his toys out of his pram, as they like to say in Britain, and just act a fool the rest of his life and use that as a justification. But I digress. So they don't talk to their families. They have successfully isolated those children from extended family. Extended family, when you come from an extended family and have access and association and love and bonding with your extended family, it does so much to shape who you are as an individual. I was an only child, but my mother came from a family of 7 and my dad came from a family of 6. So I have a ton of extended family, and my best friends growing up were my first cousins. Those were relationships that formed me. Her children don't have that. So how can she wish for them to carve out an existence to mirror the choices that her and Harry have made when their choices have been so destructive? their emotionally destructive choices that they've made. They're teaching their children to shut people out for perceived grievances. Like these things that Meghan and Harry have shut their families out for are what they perceive as grievances, but they're not real grievances in the sense that they're things that have broken their souls. It's things that have broken their egos. Their egos were bruised, and that's why they're separated from their families. What? Because Harry didn't like the fact that his brother told him to take his time in deciding whether or not he wanted to build a life with Meghan. Yeah, petulant Harry doesn't like being told or given advice contrary to what he wants. So that's why he's going to disregard his brother. And he's upset because of mistakes that his father made decades ago. And yes, his father did make a lot of mistakes, but it was documented and written about in so many articles and books and documentaries and everything that William and Harry eventually did come around to Camilla. And until someone arrived on the scene, it seemed like they were happy and enjoyed and just loved the fact that Camilla made their father so happy. That's why they chose to participate in the wedding. And at the time, were very happy to have Camilla marry Charles. So they had all of that. But he's going to throw it away. Maybe because he has someone nasty whispering in his ear who's bringing out every horrible trait that he's ever had in himself. I don't know. But these are slights and these are tiny little ego things. Meghan doesn't talk to her father because she thinks that he sold her out to paparazzi. What has she done since the beginning before she even married into the family? She was on like dial-a-pap program. It's unbelievable. She doesn't talk to her father because of something that she perceives as an ego grievance, but she's guilty of the same thing. Personally, I think she used that as an excuse. I personally have always felt that she was embarrassed by her father. She was embarrassed by him because he does seem to be a bit narcissistic himself and very brash. He speaks his mind. And to me, he definitely seems like the type of person that doesn't have much of a filter. He will he will think and then he will speak. She didn't like that. And she also didn't like the fact that he was a bigger man, a heavier man, and he just doesn't fit into her curated aesthetic. She was scared of the fact that he might open his mouth and say something unsavory about her, and she wasn't going to like it. And she just didn't like his appearance and his brash manner. He wasn't fitting into the persona, the caricature, if you will, that she's trying to sell, or that she was trying to sell at that time, and that she's still trying to sell us now. So that's what it is. These are ego slights. These are grievances, petty grievances that her and Harry are taking to their heart and just to the core of their soul. And they're going to die on this hill, which is really sad because, you know, my father passed in 2020. I would give anything to hang out and spend time with my dad. She has a father who lives actually now he used to live close to her in Mexico. Now he's somewhere in Thailand. But it's still not hard for her to buy a first-class ticket and go see her dad and give the man a little bit of peace in his dying days. Maybe go take your kids over there so their grandfather can meet his grandchildren. But this is what I'm talking about, why people get so infuriated and angry at this woman when she talks about wanting her children to have family and connection and community. Her community is a Godmother bookstore owned by rich ladies that live in Montecito. Her community is this hamburger brewery that she's going to. Like, that's what she thinks is community, not family, but like these ladies, these rich society types, and these little coffee shops and like cool bakeries that she likes to go to. That's community, and that's what, really just butters her bread. That is the most important thing. Not the fact that, she has family, her husband has family, but they've just thrown them away. It's so sad. It's so unbelievably sad, you guys. This interview, just the second part especially, got me into a really sad place for her. And I was looking at my rosary bracelet that I've been wearing every day for the last couple of days. I had it in my suitcase wrapped in some weird area that I couldn't find, but I found it. And I try to wear my rosary bracelet as often as I can. But I was thinking about the example of the Holy Family. And you know how Adam and Eve in Genesis said no to God and to God's plan for them, whereas Mary and Joseph said yes to God and yes to his plan. And Joseph and Mary were on earth the personification of the ideal parents. Everything that we want to be to our family, we should look and model after Mary and Joseph. And I was just praying that Harry and Meghan would just completely stop this narcissistic ego train that they've been on for so long and really start practicing what they preach, because that's all she's telling us in this interview. Again, how much she loves being a mom and how she wants the best for her children and all this kind of stuff. I really, really hope that that becomes actually true for these people, for these two, because everything that they do doesn't really seem like their children are their number one objective. If they were, they wouldn't use them as often as they do for publicity. And they wouldn't even have to talk about them so much or try to portray themselves as such good parents or try to sell that to us, because they would just be good parents. They would be off being good parents, and she wouldn't waste as much time as she's wasting with this Netflix show that nobody cares about, that everyone is just basically raking over the coals, or this business that has so many holes and just weird things going on with it. And everyone's criticizing that too. Or the podcast where she tries to posture, as being this perfect person. It's like she always tries to tell us in these interviews that all she cares about is family and being authentic. And she just, that's all she cares about. Well, if it really is all she cares about, then stop with all of this PR nonsense in your face stuff. Stop with the business, stop with the Netflix shows. We don't need to see it. We don't need this. It's like, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, pray for this woman. I know I pray to the saints and ask for their intercession and for their help. I'm Catholic. We do not worship saints. Please don't write that in the comments. We're not worshiping them. We are calling upon them as friends in heaven, because they're not dead. They're in heaven. They are our friends. They have walked the walk. They know what it takes to get to heaven. So that's why we pray to them and ask for their intercession. But I digress. So I just pray, Saint Joseph and Mary, in particular, you know what it's like to be the model of parents on earth. Help me to model my parenting after you. And please, help open the hearts and minds of people like Harry and Meghan to what is really important, to what really, really matters. All this stuff, all this nonsense, it just does not matter, guys. But it did make me really sad to listen to Meghan talk about her kids and for her to be asked questions about what she wants for her children, because I think the interviewer was hoping that maybe she might go into talking about her family a little bit more and open up. I don't know, but you know that those types of questions, they just get immediately deflected by Meghan. It's almost like she's Teflon or something. Like they just bounce right off of her and they don't faze her at all. Although you can see that she's kind of a little bit visibly agitated that she got asked that type of question, because she doesn't know how to rectify it, because she knows she had a good childhood and because she knows that she discarded her family and, in my opinion, really encouraged her husband to disregard his. So it's just weird. You cannot rectify the way that she's lived her life with all of this stuff that she is espousing now. And that's what's sad. And that's what's really upsetting to so many people. And I just pray for those kids too. I feel really sorry because they seem to be in the grip of two parents that are egotistic, narcissistic maniacs. And especially her, she's got some real sociopathic tendencies, because a normal person would take social cues and look and see the landscape and the culture and what we are saying about her. And we all cannot be wrong. There's so many reasoned voices out here and we aren't all wrong about her. We can't be. We're basing it on not some horrible isolated incident. It's been a series of incidents over a period of almost 10 years. And that's not enough to make her think to herself, maybe there's something here. Maybe I need to flip the script here, course correct, atone, and get right. Get right with my families and God. But yeah, so yeah, just really, really sad. Really, really sad, you guys. And there are a lot of us out there that still feel sad about her. And I think that's a good sign. That's a good sign. It means that we still have humanity in us where she's concerned, because she's done a hell of a lot to piss off a lot of people. But I've had a lot of you tell me in the comments before when I talk about praying for her that, you go right ahead, Jennifer, but I'm not going to do it. But let me just assure you that it makes me feel better to call for prayer for her and to even ask you guys to do it, even if it's hard and even if you don't want to. Because I'll tell you why I keep reiterating that I pray for her and why I want us to do it as well. Because this is not the gospel according to Jennifer, okay? This is what we're commanded to do by the Lord. So I'm not, sitting here trying to tell you to do it because it makes me look good. I don't really want to do it either. We don't have a choice. Christ commanded us to pray for our enemies and to forgive people. But he also said too that if you go and you preach the gospel and you try to do your best to be a good person and you're rejected over and over and over, to wipe the dust off your feet and leave. So, you can forgive, but you don't have to be ignorant or stupid or allow people to continually abuse you. Hopefully, she can atone and she can cut this crap out, because it's getting really, really destructive. And when I say destructive, it's going to be destructive to her and her psyche and her husband's psyche if they continue down this road of wanting constant public approval. But yeah, so I know it's hard. You can hate it, but just do it because that's what the Lord wants you to do. And that's what it means to be loving and being subservient to our Lord. So just continue to pray for this woman. I'm going to pray for her too. The videos that are coming about my review of the With Love Meghan season 2 Netflix series, they're coming, and I hope they're going to be a little bit more fun and give us all a little bit more of a chuckle. And because she's never going to be asked anything that has to do with family or her kids or anything like that to put her on the spot. It's all going to be just stuff that makes her look good. I've watched the first 2 videos of that debacle, and I have to say the things that are sticking out so far is the Chrissy Teigen episode in particular, because we all know how Chrissy Teigen has behaved in the past, but the fact that she has super, super long coffin nails, and she has her fingers and her nails in every single dish that they're making and touching. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really, really gross. It's gross, you guys. So I can't wait to get into all that with you. So those videos are coming. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know my lighting's a little bit wonky. We're going to be moving into our permanent place here in Germany this coming weekend. So if the videos take a little bit longer, I do apologize, but I'm doing everything I can to get stuff out. Things got a little deep today, but I am so happy that you stuck around. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you very soon. Bye.